Hello, Internet. Welcome back to another edition of Eric's Corner. If you've been following my channel, you will see something's very different here, different angle, and I've got a guy here sitting next to me. This is going to be my very first interview. My friend Justin here is doing the honors of being my very first interviewee. Justin and I go way back to high school, been friends for a lot of years. I fished with him in Bristol Bay the past 3 seasons, helped him build his super picker last spring, so we're pretty tight. Justin, thanks for joining me. Give a real quick synopsis of who you are and why you're credible to the topic we're going to discuss here today.
Yeah, in regards to Bristol Bay, commercial fishing, prices and such.
Absolutely.
So relatively, it kind of goes back to before recorded history. My part Native Alaskan and my family traces our roots back to the third settling family in Anilchik, which is a Russian fur trading settlement with a Native Alaskan woman who's my great-great-great-grandmother and a Russian. So we've been here commercial fishing before it was commercial, when it was just subsistence. And my great uncle owned a fish trap before statehood. My great grandparents had the fourth, I think it was the 4th set net site down on the Kenai River before that was sold after my grandparents passed away. My great grandparents passed away. So we've been in the industry for as long as I've been alive, obviously, but as long as recorded history, essentially. My grandparents also own the biggest dryland marina, Northern Enterprises Boatyard in Homer, in the whole state of Alaska. So,
how long have you been fishing? Where did you start fishing? Who for, rather?
Yeah, I've done Bristol Bay and offshore set netting and Cook Inlet. So I fished for my grandma. I started in high school. God, I don't even know anymore, probably 22 years plus now at this point. I started fishing my own boat in 2007. So my whole life, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. The good old just in time.
Yeah.
I've been in canoes that weren't that rolly. So yeah, that's where I first fished for Justin, first couple of seasons on the old just in time before we built the bigger boat. So, $1 million question. What happened with the fish prices? We have very congruent opinions among captains that it's not really making sense. It's fishing, it happens, price fluctuates, that's fine. But what happened when we got massive hyperinflation, $6 fuel, etc.? It's not making sense to a lot of people, and half the fleet had to have lost money.
Yeah.
And a half of the other half barely pulled through. What happened?
Essentially, I think the biggest problem is the lack of transparency between the commercial companies and the commercial fishermen, because in the end, there's no answers to why the price was what it was. I mean, prior to COVID, we were doing very well. And it's been on a steady downcrease since then, even though the price of fish was very high 2 years ago. There was no real benefit to the fishermen.
What happened that... well, I mean, of course, we have a supply and demand issue, which you're very familiar with economy.
Yeah.
You had great pointers for me throughout my life on this, that, or the other thing, housing, etc. So do you think it's kind of a supply and demand issue? We're getting this very wishy-washy answer. Well, all of our fish from last year aren't sold, and this, that, and the other thing.
I mean, everything comes into play. Yeah. In economics, there's nothing that's a straight answer. It's not as simple as supply and demand. It's not as simple as the U.S. dollar strength versus, not as simple as they've used Russia as an excuse, that the Russians are... I mean, everything comes into play. But in the end, the biggest thing I think that comes into play a lot of times is profit. The company wants to make a profit. We want to make a profit. But the lack of transparency between a commercial fishing buyer and us doesn't... I mean, I guess let's go back a little bit. Let's go to the point. I don't know. Nobody really knows this. We know this, but Bristol Bay is the only fishery I know of that we don't actually have a price before we actually go fishing. We don't have a price during the season. So essentially, you hire people, you get people to come work for you, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, my insurance alone just for the boat, just the insurance for my crew and my boat is $25,000. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge expense. And I still don't know what I'm going to get paid until the end of the season. And by end of the season, I mean, what was it?
July
10 days before we quit.
Yep.
I mean, if it essentially we've already delivered 90% of our product before we get a price. I think that's the sticking point is there's no reason for them to pay more. There's no competition. They don't have a supply and demand when it comes to us because we have to fish and what they give us is what they give us.
Yeah, they know that 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And you guys also, you have to legally fish your permit or there's repercussions.
Yeah, you can actually lose your permit if it's not fished. There's certain state regulations. In fact, the state...
$200,000.
Yeah, the state is part of the problem.
Shocking.
During... I guess it would have been the 60s, I believe. I don't remember the exact year. I'd have to look that up. We used to have a group that was trying to have unionized commercial fishermen. Just like you would have a union for iron workers. Or the state passed a law. It's illegal for commercial fishermen to form a union. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I understand the reason the law was passed. It goes back to the fear of communism. And believe me, I'm against communism. And I speak from a point of understanding. I don't believe you should be against something without understanding it. I mean, I've been to Cuba. I spent a month there. I mean, you were supposed to go on that trip with me until the Navy
shut me down.
Yeah, they were not impressed with that.
No.
I've been to...
Yeah, you can go, but after you get out, oh, gee, thanks.
Yeah. I've been to Vietnam.
Yeah.
I've been to multiple communist countries. So I speak from that. That was a bad thing. And I understand why they were afraid of communists creating this, essentially a communist party using unions. But what it's caused is the fact that we have no power, even though we own commercial fishing permits. And as you know, and of course your viewers probably don't, most people, Bristol Bay produces about 50% of the wild sockeye salmon in the world.
You did mention that farm fish was up.
Farm fish has been up. Last year, it's at record highs. If you look at where it's going, I mean, part of that is inflation. Part of it's, the Norwegian government passing laws on more taxes on their fish, and they produce a huge amount of, I want to say it's close to 50%. I'm not sure on the number of the farmed fish. So that's a driving factor. Increased population, increased middle class in the world, all these things come into play.
Do you really think that they haven't sold all their fish from last year? Because we were getting mixed answers, but just like anything.
I think that they're going to try to sell their fish for as much as they can, period. So I think that there was some pushback on the prices. The big buyers are a part of the problem too. It's not just the buyers of our fish that buy it from us, the processors, let's call them. The processors are not the only one in this. There's the big buyers that buy it and then resell. So I think they had a lot of pushback against our, commercial processor buyers. And I think that led to some problems. Decreased demand for H&G products, head and gutted. Fillets sell very well.
You did mention the fish were very pretty this year.
Year,
I could tell also, not my first year.
And actually, I haven't even mentioned this to you because it only came yesterday. I got an email from our company that we fished for that I'd have to look up the exact wording and I'll tell you later, but that our fillets were selling rapidly at a very competitive price or something to that. In other words, they're not saying it, but they're saying that our fillets from this year are selling really, really well.
Yeah, that's the premium product.
Yes, and I mean, they're 5.5 pound average, I believe they said in that letter, which are very big. Bristol Bay fish are smaller, like Cook Inlet where I fished, offshore set netting, and where my family fished since beginning of time, recorded time, and before that. They're a much bigger fish, obviously. The market is very strong for bigger fish, that it always has been. Though some of the lock producers, salmon locks, you know what I'm talking about, the lightly smoked, they've been shifting to smaller fish because of the farm fish had gone up so high. And they're actually enjoying that product, the smaller fillets. So that market is changing a little bit, but the bigger fish do command a premium. So this year's fish are the biggest fish I've ever seen out of Bristol Bay. And I was told by Peter Pan, who we were part of the test fishing fleet for the Nushagak district, and we sold fish to them for that. They said that was the nicest pack, and pack they mean the amount of fish they put up, that they had ever produced.
Yeah. So again, can't look too hard for rhyme and reason some of this. it's just kind of going to be the way it is. But I mean, I personally, again, with the economy and what things cost, I just don't pass the expense on it at the market, because that's expected.
That is part of it. I think it's the biggest gripe from us fishermen, and you included as a crew member on a commercial fishing boat, is
assistant to the deck boss.
Is that the years that our processing companies make a lot of money, we don't get as big a percentage of that. We get good money, but they keep a bigger percent. And then the years that there's always downturns and upturns in any market. The years that we're on a downturn, the losses are passed on us as a commercial fisherman higher than the losses that the company is taking.
Yeah, the company loses, you lose. The company gains a lot, you don't gain.
And they got to. It's a business. They got to make money, but I think it's the lack of transparency is the biggest problem. And when I speak bad about the companies, I got to say, first of all, the people who work for that company, the heads and the guys that run our nets and they are awesome people.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot speak highly enough about the people that work for that company.
Yeah.
I'm speaking badly more about the owners, the board of directors, the people that tell the people we know.
Yeah, the people that aren't actually talking to us. And
that's who I'm more speaking against. I'm not speaking against the people that actually run the company. Most of those people are very good people, and they really do care. Yeah. I mean, they do.
We never had any gripes about them, for sure. We've signed petitions. By we, I mean permit holders. Yes. People have talked about having the governor get involved, and God, please, love of God, don't get the government involved. It'll absolutely bring more harm than good. It always does. Just maybe an idle threat. Okay, cool. But moving forward, I mean, again, you'd like more transparency. You'd like to be some kind of more of a shareholder in the profits. So when you get X amount of dollars, but the price of fish goes Blade Runner, well, where's our kickback? Okay, if it's crap, it's crap. Okay, we all lose. Okay, whatever. That's life. That's fine. But again, very congruent opinion where with the inflation issue, fuel being $6 a gallon. I mean, people having $30-some thousand fuel bills. I don't know what ours was. I'm guessing it's somewhere around.
It's very close. It's very expensive. So to speak to your point, yes, of course, I signed the petition, as you know. So did my wife, to get the state involved. It's actually part of, I believe, the same laws when they passed to get rid of the unions. They said that the state would get involved if we didn't have a price announced and half the permit owners wanted them to be involved. So essentially it was a fail-safe. At least that's my understanding, and I could be incorrect. I want to say that.
Not likely. I've known you for 22 years, and I've yet to see you be wrong.
Oh, I've been wrong many times.
Well, I mean, on a bigger scale. I mean,
but that's, I think, what you spoke to, the government not being involved, is why the petition probably won't pass, even though I did sign it, and I do believe it's a good idea.
Again, at least as some kind of threat.
Well, and it's more that the state will be involved in the transparency. I think going forward, as you asked what we should do, I think there's a couple options, and this is my opinion. I think there's probably hundreds of options out there, and people who have different. I think one of the options is changing the state law. We need a union. Let me ask you a question. In any commodity, if it be, wheat or oil or anything, we control, as permit owners in Bristol Bay, 50% of the supply in the world. Would you think that those people would have a ability to negotiate?
You'd think.
And any market
half
would.
Of the world's market is
insane.
Stupid.
It's insane. And we don't even know the price before we go fishing.
All of China doesn't even produce half the world's rice. Let's just say, I mean, maybe
they do.
I don't know, but that's a staggering high amount.
So I think there's two options. I would go towards either allowing unionization, which, as much I like unions in some ways,
another can of worms.
But it's another form of government. But unionization in the form of collective bargaining, which is what a union is, but collective agreements. And I understand these companies want to keep some of these market shares as a secret because they don't want the people they're selling their fish to know the exact penny they paid for the fish, the exact penny. So there is
They're buying the whole fish. They're paying for the guts and the skin and the head and the skeleton. Like, but it doesn't matter. Marketable product.
We need to. I do understand they don't want the buyers to know exactly what they paid for. So there needs to be a separation. Or I think the one I would like to see the most, co-op. There's no reason we don't have a co-op processing where every permit owner is part of it. I mean, you look at some of the most successful co-ops that name brands, Ocean Spray Cranberry. Mm-hmm. They're a great form of co-op that is grown and actually, I mean, brought new products to market. I think cranberry sauce is they were the first one to bring it to market per se, if I remember right. Another one, Tillamook cheese. And I mean, if you live on the wrong side of the coast, you don't even know what Tillamook cheese is. But I'll tell you what, the first time I went to Arizona, I was like, how can I not get Tillamook cheese? To me, that's the cheese I buy. Yeah. So a co-op is a good option too as a processor. And I don't mean co-op where we share all our profits of, it's based off of how much you produce. You get to keep your percentage, but it would allow fishermen to control some of the market factors and have an understanding of it. And do I want to be involved in creating that? Maybe, but it's a lot of work. Yeah. I would prefer to have better communication between the processors. They need to make a profit, but the fishermen need to make a profit.
It's way less likely that the people that are the processors are going to starve than the fishermen. I mean, like I said, we got people that are insanely hurting financially. I mean, it was a big blow to you too for other reasons.
You do realize, like the company we fish for.
Yeah.
And I hate calling them out, so I'm not going to say the name. Yeah. But they are owned by a Canadian company. So, and it's not a company per se. It's actually a family. Mm-hmm. So they own a huge amount of farm fish too. But they are billionaires, period. Yeah. Billionaires.
Filthy, right?
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think that everyone should be able to make a profit. But the fact is, in the end, a 1% percentage loss in the earnings of the company is only one of 100 company they own. And it's very little. But a 1%, 2% loss in commercial fishing earnings for me and you, that's a huge percentage of what we get to keep. Especially for me, because as you know, it takes...
You're bankrolling the whole thing.
It's $100,000.
Yeah.
I always say to get the boat off the beach. But see, the point I have to make is that I have to catch that much fish because I have to pay the crew percentage on that fish before I actually make money.
You gotta gross $200,000 to break even.
Yeah, I mean, about 100. It's about 100,000 to just, but that's break even, not considering the wear and tear on engines that cost 70,000 a piece. I mean, these numbers are so astronomical. They blow me away. Yeah. I mean, my first boat I bought for $5,000.
Yeah, the chair and the new one cost $5,000.
Yeah. It's insane what things cost now. But I get the disparity, and I'm not trying to knock the fact that this company's wealthy and these people have done very well for themselves.
Fantastic.
It's just the disparity in profits and the transparency of where the profits is. Yeah. I don't think that
a lot of closed book stuff.
Oh, we get nothing. You don't know, and I don't know how much of our fish are left from last year. Yeah. We get an email and they say, oh, it's getting close, or, whatever.
What's close? 100 million pounds or 35 fish?
I mean,
what is close? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we just don't know. And I think that's the big problem. I think that a bargaining where somebody knows and can pass on somebody that we trust as a commercial fishing group can pass on that information, maybe without the exact numbers, because there is something to be said for a private company trying to keep their numbers secret, and to be competitive. You're not going to tell when you build a brand new house, you're not going to be like, hey, I built that house for $216,000. Now I need you to write me a check for $340. Yeah. And it wouldn't be. The fact is there's other expenses in there. There's risks. There's insurances. You can't show all that in those simple numbers. Yeah. So there's got to be some sort of collective bargaining, or the commercial fishermen need to, I guess, I hate to use the word man up because I know that that's not very politically correct, but we need to.
Have you watched my show?
Yeah, I actually have not, Eric. I mean, I've been pretty busy. I haven't had time to check out your videos. I watched about half of one just when I had some time between work.
It's nothing we haven't been over, and nothing I haven't gone on tangents about at 4 o'clock in the morning, all 3 days sleep deprived. So
Right.
Okay, I mean, we only got a few questions. I mean, anything else you want to dip in and cover real quick? Shiloh is actually on his way up as well. I'm going to have him on as well and get a couple opinions, and I'd love to have Kobe on as well.
Yeah, he's a well-spoken, calm guy.
3, and if just take the 3 of you, which all in the same fishing group, or but maybe branch out and get a little bit more diversified opinions if people want them. This is just kind of a pilot and see if anybody even really wants to hear from you anyway.
I would think that one of the things is we need to share the information that we hold as self-evident. We already know it. Yeah. That we don't know a price. That to any other person in the world would find very interesting that there's a group. I mean, they talk about fair trade in regards to coffee or other thing. How fair is it that I don't know what I'm going to get paid for my product till after I ship it to the other company and they've sold it? Yeah. And not all of it, but some of it. I mean, they sell my product before they tell me what I'm going to get paid for it. Yeah. I mean, that is...
Well, the first 2 years I was out there, they did give us a base price of $1.10.
That was Peter Pan. And after they got bought in 2021, they decided to try to change the script, flip the script, and announce a price before. That company has had some major financial issues. Yeah. I applaud them for trying to do that. Yeah. In fact, I fished for Peter Pan for my first 10 years, and I loved the company, the people that work for the company. We had some issues with limiting how much we could catch because they couldn't process it, doing some issues that kind of drove me away. But I think trying to get some information across to people that we know, but other people don't, that we're getting paid 50 cents base. By the time it got done, right now, we're getting 80 cents a pound. Yeah. We get RSW because we refrigerate our fish down to right above freezing, like 33 degrees, to keep the quality good. We float them in water. We get a bonus for doing that because it keeps them from bruising, keeps the quality good. Yeah. And they like to bleed them because it can increase the quality of the fish. I think that's debatable in gill netting. But
they come up dead. They're not flopping. Blood's already
some do,
coagulated
some don't.
In some cases,
But 80 cents a pound. I mean, how many people would find that interesting when I go to Safeway in Homer, where we live? A lot of fishermen from Bristol Bay live there. And it's $16 a pound in Safeway for the fillet. I mean, of course, we're not selling a fillet, we're selling a whole fish, but nobody's going to look at that and go, anyone's going to look at that and go, that seems right. Yeah. I mean, there's something wrong or something that we don't understand. I'm not saying it's wrong, I guess. We don't have the whole picture. I don't think anyone could disagree with that, but most people don't understand this. I mean, it's not something outside our community that's really talked about.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, hopefully this reaches some right ears, and hopefully we can get something, like you said, just some kind of resolution. Because I mean, again, you can't go out there as a charity and just lose money. I mean, there's some people that are going to be hurting real bad. I mean,
yes,
which I mean happens. It's the nature of the beast, but but again, if
they do everything right, they should have at least the understanding of why they are going bankrupt. If they did everything right, if they produced the fish that's normally average, they did everything right, then they're just. I mean, that's pretty disenfranchising when you're just like, I did everything right.
Yeah. Boat didn't break down. We caught fish and destroyed nets and everything and it's just can't win sometimes in that department. So okay, I mean, if there's nothing else, wrap it up.
If the group that you were trying to talk to, if they have questions for me, hey, send them to Eric in his comments, and I'll try to answer them too. Yeah. We talk a lot. I mean, he's one of my best friends. He's a great guy. I mean, if he hadn't gone away and served in the military, he would already have owned a permit in Bristol Bay, which I appreciate you doing that. I really do. But, I missed you those years, that's for sure. But I'm happy to answer the questions you have, and your community you're going to build will have.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, Justin.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Love you, brother.
So, thank you for joining me. I'll post this video, and like he said, shoot some questions. Like I said, I'm going to hopefully get a couple more interviews and get a little bit broader opinion, because everybody's going to have their own take, and hopefully we can come to some kind of resolution, because like you said, not having a price before you go having to take 50% over nothing, and a lot of people are taking losses, and that's just not sustainable. I mean, this is, taking food right off your plate, literally, pretty much. Also, if you do see this and you happen to see some Bristol-based salmon at the store, if you have the financial means to do so, I mean, hook us up and buy some fish. I mean, I'd be happy to do a how-to video on how to cook it.
Yeah.
I mean, the crew likes my fish. He doesn't. He doesn't eat fish.
I eat smoked salmon,
Yeah,
but
smoked salmon,
I ate a lot of it as a child, and over the years,
ruined it for you. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Stay tuned for